This week for Tactical Tuesday, we're going to talk about the Infiray Ricoh Micro clip-on thermal device. Welcome back, guys. As mentioned at the intro of the video, this week for Tactical Tuesday, we wanted to take a few minutes to discuss the Infiray Ricoh Micro clip-on thermal device and why it may be something you want to consider having in your toolkit. And guys, before we kick things off, we do ask that if you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel, as it does help us continue to grow and kind of expand our outreach so that we can continue to bring you cool content like this. And if at the end of the video you think that this information was cool or useful in any way, if you feel so inclined, go ahead and give us a like and maybe a comment down in the comment section. We do read through them and we do respond back to them as quickly as we can. So guys, as always, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. But let's dive back into the video and start talking about the device. Now, as mentioned before, we wanted to take a few minutes to discuss the Ricoh Micro clip-on thermal device and kind of explain why it is such a useful piece of equipment that you may want to consider having in your kit. Now, what makes it such a neat piece of equipment is that it is a very versatile tool. Unlike other thermal devices that maybe kind of pigeonhole you into one use, this one here can be used in various ways, whether that's mounting in front of an existing optic on your rifle, using it as a standalone optic, using it as a handheld device, or if you felt so inclined, you could mount it to a helmet and use it to kind of help for navigation or for spotting targets and things such as that. So given the fact that it's not just a kind of one-use tool, makes it a lot more justifiable in its purchase because unfortunately, like many things, it is a little bit more expensive than some of the other items out there, but the amount of uses that you can get out of this device really helps justify that cost. And in addition to being, an extremely useful kit, it's also an extremely well-built piece of equipment. The Ricoh features Inray's top-of-the-line chips as well as internal sensors, making this device one of their best products that they currently offer. This particular model in front of us, the RH25, features a 4x digital zoom, a detection range of 1,375 yards, a display resolution of 1024 by 768 pixels, includes 4 image settings, including white hot, black hot, red hot, and color, as well as features 7 reticle types, which can be toggled between black, white, red, and green reticles. Another awesome feature about the Ricoh is that it does have the capabilities to record as well as take photographs. It features a 64GB internal memory and has a very good resolution. It can be paired up to a cellular device so that you can more quickly sort through the footage and content that you are getting with it, as well as it has a 4-hour battery life. The device weighs 12.7 ounces, comes with a 5-year warranty. It can operate in temperatures ranging from -4 degrees all the way up to 122 degrees, and can also handle the recoil up to 300 Win Mag. The fact that it is incredibly durable and can be used in so many different ways is also a huge benefit to the end user, as it doesn't pigeonhole you into one particular use. So oftentimes we're asked here at the shop, which is more useful? A thermal device, such as the Micro Ricoh, or a traditional PVS-14, more of an analog style night vision device? And that question is a pretty tough one to answer because both of those devices do things very differently, and they're used in very different ways. There's no denying that when you're looking for a device that has the capabilities of finding a target or identifying a subject very quickly, a thermal device is going to do so very, very well. Especially when you compare it to something like a traditional PVS-14 night vision device. While the night vision devices of the more traditional nature, like the PVS-14 and the Ricoh Micro, have some very common similarities, kind of on the Venn diagram of seeing in different spectrums, they are definitely used for very different purposes. And oftentimes a lot of people kind of tend to think that those purposes overlap a lot more than they were actually designed to do so. And what I mean by that is the benefits you're going to get from using a thermal device over a traditional PVS-14 is such that you are able to find targets much, much faster. And especially with a high quality thermal device such as this. Given the fact that the resolution on this particular device is so good, you are able to mount it in front of your existing optic on your rifle and really be able to dial in and see those targets out to 1,300 yards, that's a huge advantage, where a traditional PVS-14 doesn't really offer that level of observation. And kind of what I mean by that is, say you have a traditional PVS-14, something that is more of that analog, kind of the thing you're gonna see in video games or in Hollywood movies. Those devices will allow the shooter to move very easily and very quickly from point A to point B. They also will allow the shooter to kind of make much quicker shots when using something like an infrared laser or an infrared light mounted to the front of the gun. And for land navigational purposes, or if you need to drive a vehicle, a traditional analog PVS-14 or night vision device is going to be the way to go, due to the fact that there's no latency in the system. When you look through one, for those who haven't, it's very much like looking through a traditional rifle scope, in as much that you can move from, look around, there's no delay in what you're seeing, it's very natural feeling. And because of that, that's what gives those the capabilities of moving very quickly. But the downside to a traditional night vision device is that when you're trying to see very specific details or find objects that are out in the distance, it can be rather tricky due to the image that you're seeing through those devices. And that is where having a device like the Ricoh Micro becomes very important to have. Because unlike the night vision device that is reliant on ambient light sources to be able to see and give you an image, this is looking on a totally different light spectrum. It is using the heat spectrum in order to see and present an image. What that also means is that regardless of the lighting conditions outside, whether it's the middle of the day or in the middle of the night, you're still going to be able to use this device to be able to quickly pick up targets and be able to find what you're looking for. That's a big reason that these are used in not only military applications, but law enforcement applications. A lot of times you're going to see guys in the search and rescue kind of departments using these, because they are very capable of finding not only people but animals and whatever it is that you're needing to find, because you're looking for heat sources rather than an actual image of somebody. Having a device like this is going to be hugely advantageous in the sense that you are able to very quickly find those targets that you're needing to find. The downside to a device like this is that because it is a digital device, you do experience a little bit of latency and lag when looking through the viewfinder. Very much like you would when looking through like a digital camera's viewfinder. If you hold that up to your eye and you turn your head back and forth really quickly, or you try to run while using just the viewfinder as your object to see through, it becomes very challenging because you're looking at a very tiny screen that has a little bit of a delay, and it can become very disorienting very quickly. But if you are stationary and you are looking, doing observational work, trying to find things with this, it is a hugely advantageous tool to have. And as I mentioned before, the benefits of owning a device like this are many. Whether you want to mount it to the front of a rifle to be used in conjunction with your existing scope or optic, or if you want to use it as a handheld device purely for spotting applications, or if you want to use it as a standalone option on your weapon system, you're able to do so as well. And the final option obviously being that you can mount it to a helmet if you choose to do so. With that being the case, this becomes a very usable tool, but you want to make sure that, if you're buying this purely for hunting applications, you want to make sure to check your local laws, because not everywhere will allow you to hunt with these types of devices. So keep that in mind, because if that is your primary purpose for owning one of these, is purely for sport, hunting, or things along those lines, you want to make sure that you are able to use it for that purpose before you go ahead and sink all that money into this device. So one of the really cool things that we had a chance to do while using the Ricoh was to take it out into the desert and compare it against a Gen 3 white phosphorus PVS-14 night vision device. And for somebody who hasn't had a lot of experience in the past using thermal devices, it was very cool and very eye-opening to be able to compare those two devices and to be able to really see the strengths and weaknesses when using those devices out in the real world. Now, one of the things to keep in mind while watching this footage is that you'll notice that the image quality from the PVS-14 is very grainy and there's not a lot of detail. The reason for that is because that night that we filmed this video was extremely dark. There was next to no ambient light for the PVS-14 to illuminate. And because of that, the PVS-14 was struggling to give us a good, crisp image, which inherently is one downside to a PVS-14, as they do rely on ambient light sources in order to give you a much sharper image. Now, one of the things that was very eye-opening to me when taking this thermal device out into the desert was how incredibly easy it was to find heat signatures. I was shocked to see how much wildlife is actually out in the desert when you have the capability of actually finding and seeing it. Now, what was incredibly cool was how quick it was to find those heat sources as well, and how you could even spot things like jackrabbits, mice, and even things as small as a moth when flying through the air. It was very cool to see the desert in a new perspective. Another really cool thing about filming with the thermal device is that regardless of where I was, I never struggled to find Nate when he was off filming other things using his PVS-14. But there were often times when he struggled to find me using his PVS-14 due to the fact that I was wearing camouflage and because the lighting conditions that night were so poor. But on the flip side of that coin, when Nate and I went for a walk in the desert to try to find different things to film at night using both the thermal and the PVS-14, I struggled to walk and to navigate through the darkness when only using the thermal device, whereas Nate, even under the poor lighting conditions, had no problems navigating through the desert and over the rough terrain. So if you're looking for a device that's going to allow you to get out into the desert, maybe do some LARPing with the boys, putting rounds on target quickly and moving from point A to point B, the thermal device may not be the right option for you, and you may want to consider sticking with a standard analog night vision device such as a PVS-14 or a PVS-31. But if you are a hunter or somebody who plans on remaining more or less stationary when using the device, the thermal is going to give you a huge advantage as it does allow you to find your targets much faster and with better clarity and better accuracy. So if you're interested in picking one of these up, we do offer them not only in the shop, but also on our website. We can ship them anywhere in the country. So don't let that stop you if you don't live anywhere near us. But guys, as always, all of this equipment, as awesome as it is and as capable as it can make your load out, it means nothing if you're not getting out there, learning how to actually use it and training with it and setting up your equipment with an intended purpose. So get out there, get that training in, and get that experience under your belt, as these tools are only as useful as the guy who knows how to use them. So guys, as always, continue to train hard, train smart, and until next week, God bless you.